This works now. So I couldn't be happier to be in India. This is a beautiful country and my first time being here. So I want to thank everyone for having me out here because this has been an absolute pleasure. So in the crypto space, I'm known as the Crypto King. And I got that reputation because I started off as both a writer and a trader. And I realized, unlike traditional markets, you can make a lot more money in the cryptocurrency space than in the regular markets. However, I got in it because of philanthropy. I thought there was something wrong with what was currently going on in both the banking system and the legal system in the United States. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. So, who am I? My first Bitcoin experience is actually kind of funny. I played high-stakes poker in college because I was a little bit of a gambler and I liked to control the outcome to a degree. And poker was one of the few things that you had a little bit of luck, but a little bit of your own confidence that took place in it. And so my first experience in poker was high-stakes poker. You bring cash to games. And one of the games I happened to not be at was robbed at gunpoint. And so the solution I had was, instead of having all this cash at games where you could be robbed at gunpoint, why don't we bring Bitcoin? At the time, Bitcoin was only $50 a piece. The group of guys I was playing with did not like the idea. They were a bunch of old-timers, Bitcoin, digital currency on a cell phone, no way. So it was an idea that went right out the window. Didn't buy any Bitcoin. One of the biggest mistakes I've made to date. However, I was introduced to it at a very early age. My second experience was not a Bitcoin experience, but what was wrong with finance. And I got a finance degree from one of the big schools in the United States, and as a finance major, I learned about the financial systems. How money was printed, central banks, private banks, what was wrong with finance. And from there I realized, being a finance major, I didn't believe in the system that I'd studied for 4 years. If I didn't believe in the system that I was representing, what was I doing in finance? So from finance I went to law. Law had the same issues. The legal system in the United States is supposed to be one of the best in the world. However, I found many issues with that legal system. So what would I do if I didn't believe in both finance and the legal system? And that brought me to crypto. While studying for the bar exam, I sold my first car. I was unhappy about it. I had it since I began driving, but I was running low on cash, being at the end of my college career, and I sold it for Ripple. It's the only currency to date I still don't have a positive concept about, but being a newcomer to crypto, I bought Ripple and made 25% in a week, and it was a great trade. It was my entry to crypto, and I realized how easy it was to make money trading cryptocurrencies. Last week I was at a conference in Miami. Katie is an individual who did a lot of filming at that conference in Miami, and her family was from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has a hyperinflation problem. A hyperinflation problem that most people don't even understand, because if they have a currency that has a hyperinflation issue of 15 or 20% a year, they don't understand what that actually means. 15 to 20% a year is low compared to these countries. They have hyperinflation of 15 to 20% a day. And so in places like Zimbabwe and Venezuela, hyperinflation runs rampant. They don't believe in fiat currency any longer. They no longer use cash. So they're already on a digital payment system. They're already using the blockchain. An economical emergency shouldn't be the reason that facilitates adoption. Zimbabwe is just one example of when crypto becomes most utilized, and I don't think it's going to be a financial collapse of the global markets that will create this issue. I think as we see more countries that do have collapses, we'll realize how beneficial it is to the countries that haven't had a collapse yet. The reason people don't trust the finance system is because money is printed by private central banks. Most of these private central banks they're private. So if they're held by a family or a corporation, then how are we to trust where this money's coming from? There's not a limited quantity of money that can be printed, and that causes a lot of issues. With Bitcoin, for example, we know what the cap is. We know how many will be mined next year, we know how many will be mined the years after. So there's a major difference between a fiat currency and a digital currency that actually has a market capitalization. So what next? We know the finance system is broken. We know the legal system has problems. But what do we do knowing this? The solution is blockchain. The solution may not be just Bitcoin, but the solution is both blockchain and Bitcoin. And in blockchain and Bitcoin, you have two examples, both proof of work and proof of stake. So the original algorithm was proof of work using ASIC miners on Bitcoin. That was the go-to. It's still the biggest network, which makes it the most secure, which is why Bitcoin currently holds the most value. Being the original with the largest network adds significant value in the cryptocurrency space, which is why Bitcoin is still king. However, other algorithms have since come into existence. We have ASIC miners, which are obviously for Bitcoin, but GPU miners are for other cryptocurrencies, Zcoin being one of them. There are many different coins that use GPU miners, and since both ASIC miners and GPU miners have come into existence, there have been novel miners. They're miners that everyone can use that use the memory on your computer. So depending on the type of individual you are and your sensibilities with coding, you can use both miners that are ASIC, GPU, or just the extra memory space you have on your computer. So mining and proof of work have come a really long way. But what about the alternative? There's proof of work, which requires mining, but what about proof of stake? So proof of stake is when you have basically your own bank account. Some individuals don't want to mine cryptocurrencies because there's a lot of issues with them, but they want to hold cryptocurrencies. If you're just holding cryptocurrencies, you lose money every single day by just holding. This issue is a banking issue. If you have money in a bank account, you expect a return. If you have money in cryptocurrency, you should also expect a return. Mining doesn't give you that return. Proof of stake does by just holding the underlying cryptocurrency. So you have both proof of work and proof of stake. So with proof of work come many requirements, but there are also risks. Remember, anytime there are requirements for an algorithm or for a platform, there are also risks associated with that platform. In proof of work, you have the expensive costs associated with the hardware to set up the actual mining software. No one's going to be happy with just one mining rig. So setting up multiple mining rigs and undergoing the necessary education seminars required to understand coding, or as some individuals here have been self-taught, that's not a slow process. That process is a tedious process. And along with the costs, there's a maintenance to it. So you have to understand how to keep the maintenance of the actual mining rigs set up. You have to have the initial capital to buy the mining rigs, and you have to have the time and the coding abilities. Not all individuals have all of those combined. And if you don't, mining really doesn't work. So moving from mining and proof of work is proof of stake. So proof of stake also has many requirements and risks. Proof of stake is obviously an alternative to proof of work that only requires holding the underlying currency. The biggest issue with proof of stake is you have to have the initial capital to buy the underlying currency. Sometimes, for example, with Dash, 10,000 Dash are required. Excuse me, it's 1,000 Dash. But 1,000 Dash at a $60 price point is $60,000. So people don't have the initial capital for some Masternodes or for some staking mechanisms like Dash. But there are many other alternatives in the crypto space where these mechanisms do exist for a much cheaper amount, and Dash earns 7% a year. Many of the other cryptocurrencies earn a much higher return, 50 to 200%. So I wouldn't recommend a Dash Masternode at the highest cost and the lowest actual return. I would recommend a Masternode that is more up and coming, one where it's more speculative, but at the same time you have the ability to earn a return that's, the interest is astronomical in comparison to a safer Dash Masternode. The biggest risks in both proof of work and proof of stake are, cryptocurrency. Prices fluctuate. If you're earning 100% a year, but the price drops by 50%, you've now made no money. So you have to understand that price fluctuations do impact both proof of stake and mining. Same issues with mining. The cost to mine Bitcoin currently is about $7,000, $6,500 depending where you're getting your electricity. So that is the base price for Bitcoin. If it falls under that, I'd recommend buying. If it's over that, it's not necessarily time to sell, but that's where miners are breaking even. Knowing that, you understand Bitcoin has a break-even point. With proof of stake coins, there's not that break-even point necessarily, so there's more fluctuations. However, there's a lot less risk in the sense of the maintenance required. So if you actually understand how to code, it's easy to set up a proof of stake cryptocurrency. If you don't understand how to code, it's almost impossible. brings me to my current project, Pocketnode. So what is Pocketnode? The biggest issue right now with proof of stake is setting up an actual masternode. Masternodes are not an easy setup. You have to set up your own server for each individual masternode, which is a tedious process. You have to do maintenance on the server, and if you have multiple cryptocurrencies, you're setting up multiple servers that require multiple maintenance and multiple server costs. For a very little return in the sense of, if you're putting in $200-300, that's how much you're making in a year. So to make $20 or $30 a month, that's a lot of time to put in to make that amount of money. So Pocketnode completely simplifies that. By being a one-click masternode service, we take the issues out of staking. Having multiple cryptocurrencies, you can also bring all these staking cryptocurrencies to one location. Right now, we have a lot of staking coins that build wallets for their own coin. It's kind of selfish. It's not a community atmosphere. Coins that build a wallet that you only allow staking of your own coin, it's beneficial for your own community, but it's not beneficial to crypto as a whole. What Pocketnode does, it incorporates all masternode coins, and it incorporates it very simply. It removes the issues associated with staking. So, privacy in cryptocurrency has been an issue for a very long time. Bitcoin started out and everyone thought it was anonymous. The original issues with Bitcoin was, Bitcoin's anonymous, what are we going to do? The government's going to crack down on it, drug dealers are going to use it. I mean, that's not the reality. That was a lot of FUD thought. So given that we know that Bitcoin's not anonymous and it's pseudo-anonymous, what comes next? And what comes next is technological revolution. And so as you've seen since the inception of Bitcoin, we've seen many other cryptocurrencies come into existence. Dash, Monero, Z Classic, one of my own projects, Anin, which is both masternode staking and a privacy coin. And so depending on what your interest is, as far as staking and whether you want privacy or the original, the King Bitcoin, determines exactly what type of cryptocurrency you want. So it's important to focus as an individual investor if you want the original Bitcoin, the safest investment, whether you want to mine your own coin because you want to put up the upfront capital, or whether or not you want to stake a cryptocurrency. Because there really are three options, whether you want to be an investor, you want to be a miner, or you want to be a staker. So it's important for every individual to make that choice individually, and it's also important to understand the different realms of privacy. Because as you enter the cryptocurrency market, buying a lot of Bitcoin doesn't mean all of a sudden your money is now private. Most governments, most organizations understand wallets are associated to individuals, and those individuals have been exposed for the most part. So don't assume that by using a cryptocurrency, all of a sudden your wealth is private. Privacy has come with tech advances, and these tech advances have come in the form of other cryptocurrencies, many being privacy coins. So eventually they may be outlawed, time will tell, but in the meantime, privacy coins are leading the privacy revolution in cryptocurrency. I'd like to open the floor for any questions you guys do have. Yes, Pocketnode is it's currently live on Android. iOS is giving us a hard time because we're accepting cryptocurrency as payment, and iOS is adamantly against accepting cryptocurrency as payment. So our desktop version is coming out very soon, but the iOS version, we're going back and forth trying to figure out if there's a loophole where it would be acceptable to accept cryptocurrency as payment, even though it's not an asset in the United States.